I think at the bigger buy-in events, there's a lot less drinking, a lot more relaxing. I don't know.
Oh, you mean that the entire tournament area smells like cannabis?
Welcome to PokerRoad Radio.
Sick merge.
Featuring the very best in pokertainment.
Hey, it is better with expert analysis.
And you know this.
I was touting Gaddafi's going to go first.
You think he's paying even money?
He's probably a moneyline favorite against the field. 3-1 on the Yemeni leader. You know, you're really making a mistake there.
And now, today's PokerRoad host, Joe Stapleton.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to PokerRoad Radio, brought to you by Lock Poker. Your hosts there, poker legend Barry Greenstein, BJ Nemeth of the World Poker Tour, and myself. I'm a guy who thinks a Mississippi straddle is totally worth the price of the VIP room. I am Joe Stapleton, and we are coming to you from the 2011 World Poker Tour event, the Los Angeles Poker Classic. Play is just wrapped up here on day 4. They're down to 18 players. The money bubble was burst last night, which means that tomorrow things are going to get real juicy with 2 tables left. And so let me get this straight. Right here, we're on a show sponsored by Lock Poker with a league that happens on Broadway tables, hosted by 2 guys who work for PokerStars, created by a guy who works for UB, based on a show owned by Full Tilt, broadcasting at an event that's owned by Party Poker. Who says the sites can't get along? Am I right?
That's why we're here alone.
That's right. That's why the whole place is empty.
Everybody's cleared out.
I want to remind everyone you can email the show at prradio@pokerroad.com or leave us a voicemail at 877-836-ROAD. That's 877-836-7623. I feel like there's going to be a bunch of Poker Road Radio shows happening in the future. Get some questions, get some strategy questions in there, guys. I think some things are going to work out where you may be hearing some more of us soon. So get some questions in for us. We've got a great show for you guys today.
Does anyone ever listen to this anymore? That's the thing I'm wondering.
I think
we don't have any downloads.
I think that people do, but people complain that we don't broadcast regularly enough, so they wait a while and then download them all at once, and then by the time there's something they want to comment on, we're already at the next stop. And you know, I'm not sure what the metrics are on the show. I've never known.
It's actually, still, even I always used to feel the Poker Beat was our best show myself.
Me too.
But PokerRoad Radio,
I thought so too.
PokerRoad Radio actually always got more downloads and listeners. So some people out there are listening to this, and more than any of our other shows.
I listen to this show,
except maybe when Phil Ivey does something. That used to get a lot of hits.
You know what totally made my day today, before we get into what's coming up on today's show, is Jason Sentai was sitting there playing, and he turns around and mentioned the tight laydown to me, which totally tickled me, made my day. I'm like, wow, this guy's at the final table, the main event, and he listens to the Poker Beat in the tight laydown. So.
Yeah, he told me he was real sad that it closed up shop, at least temporarily.
I think a lot of people, that was a great show.
It was a great show.
Arguably the best poker show.
It filled the need, and the need is still there.
Yeah, I mean, I think even people who aren't big on Poker Road Radio, a lot of people feel it's mostly dead, or Poker Road. I would say the 2 best shows, if you had to vote, and I'm about, some people like the 2+2 PokerCast. It's been there for a long time, but the Poker Beat and Big Poker Sundays, with Rolibus and
of course.
Poker Beat is kind of like the offspring.
The offspring of that, but most people would point to those as the shows that really kind of kept you abreast of what's going on more than anything else.
Poor Scott Huff, though. He's podcast poison, I guess, huh? How many shows is that guy buried, huh?
Well, yeah, he's created the best shows. And
whereas this show, Poker Road Radio, is not in anyone's top 10 list anymore, but it's still plugging along with old Stapes here.
That's true.
Yeah, but they still listen.
No, that's the whole thing. Is they actually do listen to it more than our other shows.
We got a great show for you guys today. We're going to go over some of today's Day 4 action. That's why a lead reporter of the World Poker Tour, BJ Nemeth, is here with us. We're going to talk to the guy from Sports Geek. I don't know if you guys have realized, but Sports Geek is now sponsoring the show. They have a really cool website. We're going to talk to those guys in the very next segment. We're finally going to chat about poker's latest cheating scandal. And this time, Seabach hasn't promised to try to get to the truth, so hopefully he can steer clear of this one. Maybe some other poker news if we have time. We're going to be joined by special guest Kathy Liebert. We're going to make another big announcement today at the end of the show that I think a lot of people are going to be interested in. And before we get going on anything else, Barry, I apparently am the black cat for whenever I text Barry and tell him it's time to do the show. He's steaming right now. He's been playing cash the last couple hours. What did I do to you, Bear?
I wrote about this in my book. When you get knocked out of a tournament, especially if there's something emotional, don't go jumping into the cash games. I got knocked out on the third
In my
day
book,
before the money.
Ace on the River.
Exactly.
Bing.
I read it.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I did play, and I got up, about 10,000. Actually, I was playing online initially, and I felt like I was playing well. Then I lost some back. Actually, I got stuck pretty bad, got it back. But what happens, especially, if this stuff affects you, and a similar thing for people who don't play tournaments, you get an argument with your wife or your girlfriend, something else happens that's really bothering you. A lot of people will, go to the one place where they can have solitude, and that's playing poker online. They're kind of used to it. And what often happens is if you win, you feel okay, and you usually have a small win. But if you get stuck, you don't notice because your mind's elsewhere that you are playing worse and things are going bad, and you can go off for a big number. And, I've done it many times in my life. That's why I wrote about it. People always say, you're so smart, you wrote about it, and so you don't do that. And I always tell them, no, I wrote about it because, unfortunately, I do it, and I still continue to do it.
He said, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, right. And again, I did it again yesterday, and I lost. And, eventually I quit before I even went crazier, where I said, yeah, now you aren't playing well, and you're stuck. And it's just... when things are bad in your poker life, if you just took off that next day, you would do so much better. Trust me on this.
Just a mandatory ban on poker the next 24 hours.
Exactly. Ban yourself from playing poker 24 hours. Find something else to do. It will probably really help you in the long run.
So what were you playing here at the Commerce?
Well, initially I was playing online 4 and 800 mixed game on PokerStars, and ended up losing at that. And then at the Commerce, just some of the mixed games and stuff and some Chinese poker. But it's now been more than 24 hours since I've gotten knocked out. So,
Yeah, but you got to extend it. It's like if you can't swim 1 hour after eating, but a half hour goes by and then you have a couple of Twinkies, you got to restart the clock.
Well, actually, that's true, because now it's like what happens is if you violate that and now you go off that day, now it can continue. And frankly, it has the potential to destroy someone's poker life. These things can really end up leading to a series of continued disasters where you don't get out of it. Whereas if you wait a day, and again, it's something like I know, but I don't always do, you have a bad session, even forgetting about these extraneous things. And I know when I used to teach someone like Mimi, she'd have a real bad session and she'd want to keep playing for 24 hours. And I always say no. And when she was younger and I used to be in charge of these things, I would pull her up from the game. And she'd fight with me, and I said, no, you got to go home and get some sleep. She said, I can't sleep, I'm stuck, whatever. But I used to make her go home. And what would often happen is she'd go home, she'd sleep, she'd come back, and she'd make that money back that next day after she slept it off. But if she'd have stayed there, even though the games are good, she's not playing that well, rested people come in, and it could just go on forever and just lead to a bad month, a bad year. So, after bad things happen, whether it's just strictly poker or in your life, taking that time off and coming back rested is really crucial. And so all these things about play, who's a good player, whatever, it's this management stuff that is more important than any of these things. And some of the young kids still haven't caught on to it. You can even see some of the people, everybody seems to like Phil Ivey, but the people who are critical of him are the people who say, look, he just lost 2 buy-ins and he quit. And that actually...
What a quitter.
Yeah, and that actually has been one of his strengths, is that Phil is very good at knowing when he's not playing well or things aren't going well, and he doesn't like being humiliated, so he'll just quit instead of looking stupid and come back. And of course, what do you think happens a day later when he's ready to play?
Comes back fresh, clear mind.
Yeah, and he ends up beating up on people.
Well, Barry, there's one other thing I wanted to ask you about. I noticed on the forums yesterday this huge thread on the forums entitled "Barry Greenstein Sucks." I don't know if you've read that one or not.
Yeah, I posted in it.
That was it. You were the OP. I got to tell you.
I wasn't the OP, but...
man, people really came to your defense. I scrolled through about 3 pages, did not find one post that even remotely agreed with the guy. I assume you read it. I know you read these things.
Yeah, no, I search for my name. People think I scour the forums. What I do is...
I do.
Yeah, what I do is I search for my name to see if I should comment on something. Sometimes I don't get to the internet for a week or so because I'm somewhere else doing something else. But here I'm at the internet, I'm playing online, so I'll search for my name and see if something's there. Yeah, I saw that, and actually, I meant to post a second time, but I've been playing. And
you posted on this one?
I posted about it. I mean, you can read. You just found my post?
How many pages in is it?
Do you have 50 or whatever, 100? How many do you have per page?
I'm guessing Stapes has the default.
Whatever's the minimum, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know how many pages that would be in, but,
Well, you're BG1, right?
Yeah.
Well, it ain't on that page. That's
Okay,
what that
while
bong
you
means.
look, I'll talk. And one of the things I said, and I even
Someone has his avatar, by the way, has you kissing Shannon.
right, yeah. People have come to my defense. Because I think a lot of the younger kids look at me as them, but 30 years later or whatever. In some sense, they aspire to have a poker life and whatever. And I have contributed, to some of their learning experiences when they were younger. And I think a lot of it is lots of these guys got in, let's say, at the start of the poker boom. And so it was who they were learning from in 2003. Right. I wrote a book. I've done a lot of commentary. I've talked. So, I think that, they've seen the contribution I've made to poker, and so they like that.
It seems like you're one of the very few open players at your level and your level of experience. I mean, like someone like Daniel blogs about just about everything, but that's almost like oversharing. Like, this is what I had for lunch. I'm flying out from here. I'm doing all this. And that's fine, and some people love that.
I can't find it, by the way.
Well, I think one of the things that happens with Daniel is he's so brutally honest, and I mean honest in the way that he says what he's thinking.
Right.
Without a filter.
Sometimes, without a filter. So I have, we all have the problem if we get interviewed a lot of saying things that later we wish we wouldn't said and are out of context. Daniel gets interviewed probably more than anyone and has no filter. Yeah. He's going to end up saying a lot of things that sound stupid, whether he intended them that way or not. And he's going to end up offending people because he doesn't have even a filter on that. So he's going to end up rubbing certain people the wrong way. Now, some people, it's really kind of like a Jim Rome type thing. Some people like that unabashed trash people and say whatever you think, and some people don't. And I think you get the youngest crowd liking the brashness and the kind of older crowd thinking
they like the trash.
Thinking you should be a little more politically correct. You didn't find my post?
No,
I can remember the thing that I said to the OP at the end was, I can almost quote it, and I said, I was just talking about my persona, and I said, maybe I've come off, again, like I'm saying here, if you get interviewed a lot, you're going to say some things that sound bad. I'm going to say things that maybe sound like I'm lecturing someone and I'm trying to be authoritative, so I can understand where you're saying I was a little arrogant. And I said, I'm hoping, if he sat with me at the poker table, he would find me to be a little more pleasant. People are like, wait, let me finish. I said, I hope you'll find me to be a little more pleasant as I figuratively step on your throat, take all your money, and silently laugh at your play.
That's the Barry Greenstein we all know and love, except when he silently laughs at me, he doesn't do it so silently. Right. It's pretty audible. Someone put up the this animated GIF of you kissing Shannon at the Heads Up, too, which I really enjoyed.
The weirdest thing, and we maybe said it before, about the Shannon Elizabeth thing, I didn't even remember the kiss until they had it in the GIF, and that's how people thought, boy, that you went after, you're so baller. It's the
you had a plan all along.
It's the truthful thing that until it was later, they had Ali Najad saying, what was that? Because of course Ali's trying to kiss or do more with every single attractive girl that comes into poker, as we know, and so I kissed Shannon. Apparently Ali didn't, or he wouldn't have been so excited about it.
There you go, burn.
What happened is, I've known Shannon since she started playing poker, because at that time she was going out with my son Joe. So she was over at the house, and I probably told the story before, but maybe hopefully people haven't heard.
She accidentally wandered in your bedroom late one night.
I didn't know it was her, honest. Until she started saying, "Call me Nadia." No.
Oh boy.
No, actually, I've still never seen that movie even.
I was going to say that's a weird reference for you to make, because I would have laid money odds you had not seen it.
I hadn't, but people, when she's going with Joe, because I didn't know who she was, were saying, yeah, she's Nadia. She's Nadia in this American Pie movie. Why don't you go and see it? And I said, to me, it had really seemed creepy to want to see a nude scene or whatever it was that they were describing to me of some girl going out with my son. Right. Doesn't it sound a little creepy to you?
It does, Barry, but I've never known you to shy away from creepy.
No, he ain't my son, so it ain't creepy for me.
Yeah, right. So, no, I never did have a reason to go out and see that movie. But anyway, Shannon, which is kind of funny, a real student of the game, what she did, Joey was teaching her poker, which is like...
What
the blind leading the blind?
Yeah, right. Yeah, especially at that time, Joey's basically just been a tournament player. as opposed to an all-around poker. So they would, she would say, "Are you sure about this?" And then she'd always run. Joey said this. Is this right or wrong? But anything I said in those days about poker, she had a notebook.
She was hanging on your every
and she would
word,
just write them down. It was really pretty funny. Yeah, and so she
Joe's
just write
stuff
everything
was
down.
in pencil and Barry's was in pen.
Right. She'd write everything down, but she took it really seriously. She really wanted to, take on poker seriously. But anyway, so obviously we knew each other real well when this NBC Heads Up happened, and we knew that if she had won her match and I won my match, we'd be playing each other next. And she was just really happy and came running across the room. And I don't even know, probably
it was the heat of the moment, Barry.
I certainly had hugged her before. I can't even remember if I kissed her on the face or the lips before. I don't know, because to me she's a kid. She's the age of my son, so I don't even think of it that way. So, I kissed her, and it meant it was just, we're friends. I didn't even remember it, and then they had this thing, and then people started making a big deal about it.
Barry, you're saying you didn't pop massive wood. Come on.
Yeah, even Shannon, I talked to her about it later. Hey, they're making a big deal out of that. And she just kiddingly, we were at some other thing, said, "Hey, let's give him something more," like for a camera. She's just joking about it, So it's pretty funny.
So that's where I was going to say that's where that night vision video came in that I saw a couple years ago.
Right.
All right, kids. Before we kick it to our first break, we got a couple of announcements here. Want to remind everyone, let's keep the Poker Road forums alive. Keep up with the show. Throw me some questions, suggestions. Of course, you can find out info about the Poker Road League on BroadwayTables.com, and of course, the home game team available at PokerStars.com. BJ, of course, you guys. What's up with the Jess and BJ show?
We do it pretty much every day during the World Poker Tour events.
Every day during World Poker Tour events. I think we're hosting it at Poker Road right now as well.
Yes. Today's episode is kind of Poker Road themed.
All right, Poker Road themed episode. Check that out. And I want to, remind everyone that PRR is sponsored by ClubWPT.com. Never lose a dime online again playing at ClubWPT.com. Poker Road Radio, we got to take a break, but when we get back, we're going to talk to the two guys from Sports Geek. Back after this. So right now, guys, we are on the line with Neil Mathieson and Garrett Gross, who are the brains behind SportsGeek.com. Guys, first of all, what is SportsGeek?
Well, Sports Geek, what it is it's daily fantasy sports.
Whoa, hold on one second. Is this Neil or is this Garrett? Because I got to get my guys straight here.
This is Neil.
All right, Neil.
Sorry.
Go for it.
All right, well, basically what SportsGeek.com is it's daily fantasy sports. And it's got a lot of the same similarities to season-long fantasy sports, but what we like to do is give people a little quicker return on their investment and reward for playing. So instead of running it all season, we have different games each night, and for football season, it's each week. But for now, in baseball and basketball, it's each night.
So what you're saying is you can win something on any given night?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you enter your teams before the games start each night, and by the end of the evening, you know where you stand. And the contests are finalized first thing in the morning after the final stats feeds come through, and the money's credited to your account, and you can have at it again the next night.
Wait, so when you say the money's credited to your account, people are winning real money?
Absolutely, yeah. The fantasy sports industry got an exemption in the UIGEA that addressed the online gaming issues, and basically fantasy sports got deemed a game of skill, and because of that, we're free to let people play for real money.
That's fantastic. We're big fans of games of skill here. So you're saying like I could sign up on Fantasy Geek right now and already have a sweat for. I mean, maybe it's the end of the day today, but as early as tomorrow's games, I could have a sweat and get paid by Wednesday.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd be able to register a new account, log in, and deposit money similar to an online poker site, and then tomorrow night we've got a variety of contests, anywhere from $2 entry fees up to $109 entry fees, and formats anywhere from heads-up contests up to large field format with many entrants, and then by the end of the night tomorrow, you'd have a winner.
What is like the range of things that people, the sorts of contests that people can participate in? I assume all the big ones, basketball, baseball, football. Is there anything that's a little out of the ordinary on there?
For right now, we had football last fall, and we've got basketball going right now. Major League Baseball will start up at the start of this season. And like you said, it's going to be a lot of the big sports, but, we're going to get into college football and college basketball next year, auto racing, NASCAR racing, professional golf. And then we're also going to look at some things like maybe a World Series or NFL draft. March Madness, maybe sometime in the future.
With the World Series of Poker.
Yeah, go ahead. That was going to be my question. I want to know more about the World Series of Poker plans.
We'll hopefully have that ready for June when the World Series comes around. And from our standpoint, I like the format because essentially we're gambling that people are going to want to gamble on people gambling.
I know, it's fantastic. It's like a gambling squared paradox.
Which is awesome. But at the same time, there's going to be hopefully a skill component when people pick their team of 5 guys, and we'll salary cap them, and then the folks will be able to pick who they want. And we'll hopefully have that product ready this summer. If not this summer, definitely down the road. But we want to offer the best fantasy gaming experience possible, whether it be baseball, basketball, and even college sports. We'll be able to offer those products down the line too. But the whole reason we started Sports Geek is basically based around a online poker model. And what we want to do is, our goal is to one day have a large tournament every Sunday during the NFL or any day during the week where there's potentially, several hundred or even several thousand people in a tournament just like it is on online poker, and hopefully build something similar to like the Sunday Million where somebody can make, several $1,000s just in one day.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a brilliant idea because everyone who's playing online poker on Sundays is sweating the football games anyway. They might as well have an extra sweat with some fantasy stuff along with their, with all their Sunday tournaments.
That's what's kind of funny about it when you talk about having a sweat. Neil and I were both big baseball fans and football fans. What we're finding is with the NBA games we offer is that neither of us really cared that much about fantasy basketball or NBA in general. But when you play SportsGeek.com, you have a different experience. You end up finding yourself glued to the TV during those late games on the West Coast to see how your team does.
Yeah, now if people don't want to compete for real money right away, can they get their feet wet? Is there a play money aspect on your site as well?
Yeah, there is actually. We do offer free contests, and what they pay, instead of paying real money for the prizes, they pay geek points, which are similar to like ultimate points or FPPs on Poker Stars. Basically, they're like store credits, and then we have a geek store where people can get T-shirts or whatever with their points. And if you get enough, you can get entries into real money contests by playing for free. And it does give people a little chance just to get in and play the site, see how it works, and see how the software works and everything. So
that's pretty cool, guys. Yeah, you don't have to invest any money if you don't want to. If you just like the sport of the game for fantasy sports, I think it's a little bit different even than playing online poker, because in fantasy, I feel like when you're playing online poker for play money, no one really gives a crap. But in this, right, I think people are still going to probably make pretty good decisions and have tough lineups even for play money.
You bet. You asked about just the play money and trying our site out for free. We're going to be offering an NCAA bracket challenge, and people can just go to sportsgeek.com and find that icon on our homepage. In the contest, we're going to give away $500 to the winners, and just give them an opportunity to get familiar with our site. So if your listeners just go to SportsGeek and try it out, I think they'll enjoy the NCAA tournament. Just enter a bracket. And also, for folks who enter the promo code PokerRoad, we'll be giving them $11 free to try the site, and we'll also offer them a 25% first-time deposit match. So I think everybody's familiar with that with the online poker community, and we're offering the same thing on SportsGeek.com.
All right, great. Anything else, guys, you want people to know before I cut you loose here?
Oh, I don't know. I guess just hoping people will visit the site and give it a try. And, it's kind of a different route to get a sweat in sports. It's different than sports betting, but it's got a lot of the same concepts where you pick your action for the night, and then you sit back and watch the games and hope your guys do well. Basically, we hope people come to sportsgeek.com and enjoy what they see.
All right, well, fantastic, guys. That's really excellent. We want all the PokerRoad fans, if they want the extra sweat these games of skill here on sportsgeek.com. And remember, if you sign up using the code PokerRoad, they'll give you $11 to get started and also a 25% deposit bonus. Neil and Garrett, thanks a lot, guys, and hopefully we'll do a lot of business in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot.
Have a good time out there.
Hey,
thanks a lot, fellas. We'll talk to you soon. All right, we're going to take it to break right now, but when we get back, we're going to have a lot more stuff back after this. Radio brought to you by Lock Poker, coming to you from the LAPC, which is a World Poker Tour event. Just want to remind everyone, Season 9 of the World Poker Tour has got brand new graphics, got the Tony Dunn's Raw Deal segments. They're on every Sunday at 8 and 11 p.m. It's younger, it's edgier, and they're not just doing final table coverage. They're showing you portions of events from all of the days leading up to the final table, which is pretty awesome. We've got BJ Nemeth and Barry Greenstein here. BJ's here to help us take us through some of the big storylines that are still developing here in this tournament. We're down to our final 18 players. Some things that I've seen. Unfortunately, he was the end-of-day bubble boy, but this guy, Evdokov, went out in 18th place. He was kind of impressive and kind of, he played on the Russian version of the big game that we shot this past week, and he missed all of day one from what I can tell, because I believe we were shooting that day. Then he manages to make the final 18. That was kind of interesting, right? And he had a lot of chips. Final 19,
yeah.
That's right.
He's been very aggressive. I didn't get a chance to watch him much the earlier days, but today he was very aggressive, willing to re-raise.
Which is very different than how he came into poker that year at the World Series that he made 10
He was kind of grinding.
He was grinding, just trying to make the money. He actually made the money because he never went very much further than the money.
Right.
Many people had better years than him, but they had to spend 3 or 4 days playing the same tournament, and he was just going out, barely in the money, going on to the next event, just not playing. And he really wasn't that experienced at the games a few years ago. Mm-hmm. But I guess, that's what you see. People get better, and now he even won 2 events here at the Commerce.
They get better and they get more confident. That's right. He won 2 events
he
here,
won
right?
2 events,
Ironman.
including the Ironman. With no breaks, just straight on through till somebody wins.
And not only did he did that, then went to Vegas, played in the big game for a 10 or 12-hour day, and then came back here and started this a day late and finished in 19th place, which is pretty impressive, I would say.
Yeah, the big hand that crippled him, not anything too bad. He shoved with ace-king. Jason DeWitt, the Master J, called with pocket jacks and was kind of hesitant with the call. Won the race, and that dropped him down, and then busted a short while later.
The other storyline that I myself noticed today is Vivek Rajkumar annihilating people. He's James Carroll on his right, who I guess is a good player in his own right. He doubled up through James a few hours ago, kings versus tens, and it was a pretty interesting hand where James Carroll thought forever. He had raised and Vivek shipped, and James tanked forever and finally said, "Will you show me one?" And Vivek, who had not blinked or made a move the entire time, put one finger up in the air and said, "I'll show you one." And then Carroll immediately said, I call. Mm-hmm. And tabled 2 tens. Vivek had 2 kings. Vivek doubled up. I wonder what sort of goes into your decision when he says, "I'll show you one." Does that make you think he has ace-king if he says, "I'll show you one"?
It kind of sounds like one of those cards is different than the other,
right?
Type of thing.
Right.
Didn't they used to say that on Sesame Street?
Yeah,
one of these things different than the other.
Yeah.
So maybe it was a really good thing that he said that triggered that thought in James's mind.
Right, and then they were in another huge pot a few minutes later. Now, BJ, I don't know if you knew what all the pre-flop action was, but there was a ton of chips in the middle before. I think that
this is like the 10 or 15 minute hand.
Yes, and this is pre-flop, I believe, but there was still a ton of chips in the middle, right? Or was there a flop out there?
I wasn't getting the pre-flop. I showed up late. I think Andy was covering that one, and I was just hopping in trying to take whatever pictures I could. And, of course, this is a situation where I'm caught with the wrong lens. I've got the telephoto lens, and I need a wide shot. So
you're taking pictures on your
pull
iPhone
out
instead.
the phone. But, hey, the phone does pretty well.
Yeah, there were tons and tons of chips in the middle, and I can't remember if there was a flop or not leading up to the action. But what happened was, again, James Carroll was in this position where he could not make a decision, and he said, "I'm sorry" to everyone, and he goes, "You should call the clock on me. Anyone wants to call the clock, feel free to." And Savage happened to be staying there. He goes, "Okay, well, you've got 1 minute left to make your decision, blah, blah, blah." And the guy goes, whoa, hold on a second. I wasn't calling the clock on myself. I was saying the table should call the clock. So Matt's like, oh, okay, no problem. Stops his countdown. And then the guy thinks for another minute or two, and then he says, man, someone should really call the clock on me. And then he goes, call.
No, he said like, go ahead. He said, go ahead, call it.
Go ahead. But the go-ahead was quiet.
Right.
And then the call was loud. And then
who's this? Who did this?
James Carroll.
James Carroll. He's Krull online.
And
what
is he online?
Krull. There's some numbers.
I've seen that.
And so
this guy's got the respect of everybody in the room.
To me, I hear the word call. That's what I hear. And Vivek somehow manages to not expose his hand.
Vivek said later, he said there wasn't any doubt in his mind what he said. The players at the table were not confused at all because they were close enough to hear it.
This was the Kings against Tensei, or this is a different?
No, there's a later hand, and then a lot of people jumped though. Like he said call, and I thought he had said call, and Vivek didn't table his hand. It was very clear the guy wasn't shooting an angle, but he realized that he did almost make a huge mistake.
Well, you see that all the time where someone says all in, asking if someone moved all in, and then they say, oh, and the dealer throws the all in. We had this, what we talked about yesterday. They throw the all in button at him, or they say, now that helps with the all in button, but there isn't one of those everywhere. And somebody even calls the all in, and then he says, no, I was asking.
Right.
But this was even worse than that. I think not.
You were at the table. You were there.
I was there, and I heard mumble, call, mumble, and I looked at Vivek, and Vivek didn't turn his hand over. So luckily, it could have been.
If you were the tournament director, you would have ruled he called.
No, I didn't. I would have done what Matt did, which is said if Vivek had tabled his hand, then I probably would have tried to make the call stand. But since there was no harm, no foul, I think that's kind of was Matt's perspective on it.
Did the guy eventually fold?
He eventually folded, yes.
Okay. The board was...
there was a board.
King of hearts, jack, 8 of hearts, 10 of diamonds on the turn, no diamonds, 5 of hearts on the river.
Okay, so
that was very
river
enlightening, BJ. So now that explains it. No,
yeah. No, but that is part of the story.
I'm just excited I found the photo.
That would explain why there were so many freaking chips in the middle, too. I mean, it was like...
It was bet heavily the whole way.
Vivek 5 or 6 pushes when Vivek eventually raked the pot in.
I think he bet more than 400 on the turn and then shoved the river.
And so that's why I'm just going to put it out there. Let's just eliminate...
By the way, that just tells us right there. VJ told us the board. That's the difference between watching poker with hole cards and without hole cards.
Right.
It might been an incredible hand.
Right, a revelation.
See both their hands.
Right.
Yeah.
But since we don't know. So I'm going to say, why have the ambiguous wording, call the clock, call a bet? Let's just get rid of calling the clock and make it holler for the clock.
Let's change all the English language to suit. So there are no words that have 2 different meanings.
Not in a poker tournament, at least, goddammit.
You could just say
request
clock.
The clock.
If you're worried about it, just say clock.
Well, I think if you really had been thinking as long as you're saying, Matt probably should at some point be alerted to the fact this guy's taking a lot of time.
Oh, he was aware of it. He was by the table.
Maybe he should. There has to be some
yesterday on the bubble
where the tournament director just takes it into his own hands and says,
yesterday
it's
on the
been
money
enough.
bubble, Matt Savage called the clock on a hand.
Right, yeah, he should be able to, because really what happens, how many times in my poker career do you think I've called the clock on someone?
0. Yeah, you're not going to call the clock on anyone.
I've never done it because I've said, hey, I might have said, this isn't that big a pot, you really should make a decision.
Right.
But normally if someone's taking that long, it is because it is a pretty substantial pot, and I don't want to affect...
Right.
If I'm not in the hand, especially...
If you saying that, it makes him say, all right, what the hell, I'll
Yeah,
call.
I don't want to get... And he wins, and now that guy's mad at me, or he loses, and he's mad. I don't want to be a part of that. I'm kind of expecting, and we probably should even have it, so after a certain amount of time, it's just mandatory. I think that's better.
5 minutes or something
5 minutes
pretty
for
reasonable.
Sure. It's got to be enough.
Or what we call 2 John fan units.
Yeah, right, yeah. Is that 2? Really, you think that's only 2 John
2
fan
and a half.
units?
Well,
that's 2 John fan under the gun.
Yeah.
But see, that's the
pre-flop
thing.
units.
It's a pre-flop action about 2.5 minutes.
Okay, that I'll give you. BJ, any big stories that we're missing here in the tournament still of those who are still left alive?
Impressive that James Carroll was beat up by Vivek in multiple pots and still finished the day above average. Jason DeWitt beat Evdokov out of that late pot. He was the chip leader yesterday. He was kind of down and up a few times today, but finished up. Alan Cunningham's still in.
That's right, Alan. And, of course, Carlos Mortensen, I assume, is still a big story here.
Yeah, did I go right past him? Yeah, Carlos is still above chips. And Carlos is looking to become the first 4-time WPT winner.
He's really pretty amazing. When he won the main event, He wasn't that good a
2001.
player. People attribute him as being a professional poker player. Like they always say, Carlos is the last professional.
Yeah,
to
that's
win it.
what I always heard.
I didn't think he was a professional. I never saw him win. Frankly, Mimi used to beat up on him and took some of that World Series money. So we just thought he was some out-of-town guy who liked to play poker at the Commerce once in a while. I think he became. I mean, maybe he was a professional. He seemed to become a professional after that. So I don't consider him the last guy who won that. I think that's a media.
Oh yeah, we make up all sorts.
They
of
make
crap.
up these things, and he's professional now because he won that. But the truth is, I didn't think that much of Carlos's game back then. Mm-hmm. But I've played with him recently. I see he gets a hold of chips, and he actually doesn't play every event, like a big event like a lot of people, and he has had a lot of scores. He, especially against weak players, does a lot of just incredibly good things, and a lot of, I have a lot of times where I say, I don't know what the heck that guy's doing if he's a guy who bluffs a lot of. Carlos's judgment is really good. I've seen him make some ace-high call downs on people that I wouldn't even been thinking about making. Mm-hmm. And so he's a good tournament player, and as I've said before, the people who have the two best records as far as I can see in big tournaments over a long period of time are Carlos Mortensen and Gus Hansen. And again, both of them don't go around and play every one of these events, and they know how to get a hold of chips. And once they get a hold of chips, it's really uncomfortable being at their tables.
I think Carlos went deep in this event last year, too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, eighth, I think.
Yeah.
Final table, but
near
not
final
TV
table. That's right. All right, well, just a couple other notable names still alive here. Baker still in there, Shannon Shore, Daryl Fish, Jason Sentai, and Kathy Liebert, who is coming up right after this next break. But before we go to that break, we've been teasing this all week. We got some big poker news, another cheating scandal. Sorrel Mitzi, who has been, I don't know how to describe it, fingered, has been implicated before in some other shady business. I wasn't even really aware of what was going on before. Multi-accounting, maybe?
Well, multi-accounting is an ambiguous thing. There are different,
right.
There are different things. Some of them are real bad, some of them are kind of bad, and some aren't quite so bad.
There are some that if you describe it to somebody who doesn't play poker, they would immediately say, of course that's cheating. Two accounts in the same tournament, unknown to other people. Other things, having multiple accounts, I think a lot of regular people would say, well, what's wrong with that?
Right, but this one is a clear-cut case of live cheating.
Yeah, this one, if it's true, it makes you really concerned because we have a lot of people when it comes to money and it comes to whether it's money in business or money in poker, they think any way you can get it is fine.
Right.
That you're just sharp. You're a sharp, one of the sharp guys if you bet on a sporting event after it's over. And the result. That's being sharp rather than being dishonest.
Right.
That's having an edge.
Yeah. So some people look at any way you can trick someone to get their money is fine. I guess, sucker is born every day type of mentality.
Every minute, I hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what is it, Barry, you get these stories firsthand a lot of time from these people. What exactly happened? What is the story that's going around,
First, let's go back to Sorrel's history of what he's done when you talk about multi-accounting. Now, and Sorrel and I play Chinese poker and know each other. And he comes to me for advice, like a lot of the young players do.
Like a lot of the nice young Jewish boys do.
Is he Jewish?
Yes.
I don't even know.
I believe he made mention of that on a PokerWire Radio episode years and years ago.
Yeah, I never, I'm not religious. I never count myself Jewish. But when, someone who is Jewish gets into trouble, then it reflects badly, I guess. But anyway, so even when it came with this multi-account thing, what he had done, it was a big thing. He had even wanted to do it as a business, take over other people's accounts while they were deep in tournaments. He's a real good tournament player. And so he did that, and he never lied about it or denied it. He really was taking the point of view that other people do it. I don't think it's so bad.
This was the bluff scandal,
This is the bluff scandal, but he had done it on a couple other occasions too, I think. And he even wanted to maybe even do it as a business. And the truth is, back in that time, lots of people were doing that type of stuff. And certainly almost anyone who was a good player or had friends who played online poker played in other people's accounts. I once polled
Sometimes
20 people.
Sometimes it was convenience.
Yeah, whatever. Hey, you got money in your account? Hey, let me play.
Right.
I played in other people's accounts.
Or I'm going
Mimi
deep
and I
in
used
this
to share an
tournament
account.
and I have something I got to go do.
It was back in the day the normal thing to do. I once even asked 20 people who played reasonably high stakes 2 questions. A, have you ever played in anyone else's account? B, has anyone ever played in your account? And both questions were 100%.
Yeah.
Everyone had normal stuff to do. Nobody thought. Even to this day, a lot of people don't know what's wrong. They'll say, "Hey, my friend Joe has money. I'm playing on his account, whatever," and they will say they don't think there's anything wrong.
Right.
Because it's but the times have changed to where used to be the Wild West, as we said. Now it's a little more the reasons not to do it. And, of course, the reason that it's kind of an unfair competitive advantage, you were playing against someone who's not that good and plays a certain style, and all of a sudden you're playing against someone who's real good and plays a different style, puts you at a big competitive disadvantage.
And you're not even necessarily aware for a while.
And you're not aware. And so, I debated it with Sorrell said, have you ever played anyone's count? I said, yeah. And he said, and so is everyone else I know. People do this. And so and one of the things I kind of went back to is I said, I've always felt there are different standards for good players and bad players, what they can do. If you were a bad player and you happen to play on someone else's account, I don't think anyone would care.
Right.
But you're a good player.
It's a big deal.
So you have to,
it's
you
like
have
a
to do
disclosure.
certain things. You now have to do things that are strictly by the rules.
Right.
And so, there are always going to be gray areas of what you can do. Gray. I'll give you something live, and I'll talk about them. Seeing cards in someone else's hands. Yeah. In Chinese poker, we have it all the time. Someone overpays you. Do you give the money back or not? There are a lot of things that doesn't sound like gray area
sleeping your props.
Sleeping your props is sleeping your props. That's different. But anyway,
what's sleeping your props?
You don't see it. No, that's part of props, so that's not even a gray area.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what Sorrell debated with me at the time was, are you allowed to give someone advice who's playing a tournament?
I think some of the sites are okay with that,
and I
right?
think that is okay. The tournament, the way I understand, unless it's changed, is that one person to a keyboard.
Right.
But they understand that other people may be there, and you may be asking someone, "Oh, what do I do here?" And I have certainly been asked, like by my girlfriend, what do you think I should do? I remember her busting out of it.
I think I've asked you in the past, Barry, if I remember.
So I'm saying that is supposed to be legal. Okay? So, yeah. Then Sorrell said, okay, now the next thing. Is it legal to, IM someone while you're playing a tournament?
Right.
And say, could someone IM me and say, hey, what do you do here? I've got jacks. It's just gone raise. I'm playing against this guy. You may know who he is. What do you think I should do against him? And people have IM Sorrell and other good players and asked them in real time.
Right.
And I guess it's probably legal since they know they can't stop. It sounds a little sketchy to me.
It's a virtual version of having them stand by.
Right. Before I say whether or not I've ever done that, I want to find out what the policy is.
Phone a friend.
Yeah. It sounds a little
Phone
now.
a friend mid-hand.
To me, that sounds a little more like you're now going to this gray area I'm talking about.
Technology.
Where you're using technology to get a better player. And I think it's sketchy.
Who may not otherwise be available to you.
Right. So let's put it in the gray area. So then Sorrell's next thing to me was, so what is the difference
between me telling someone
efficient and I'm going to be he was IMing me anyway.
Right.
And now I said, just let me take over and play it.
Right.
I wasn't hiding anything. I was just extending it. Just because they have it in the rules, I was allowed to tell them what to do anyway. And actually, one person who pointed up a difference, and I think he's probably right. I think, and if I've got the wrong guy, then I'm sorry, whoever did it. I think it was Shane Slager, who posted about there's a lot to do with the flow and being there and knowing what people are different that makes a good player even that much stronger than just one hand by one hand kind of advice, which is gray already. But this other just taking over now.
And also,
there's timing involved in poker also.
Right. There's timing, and also, Barry, if I'm sitting there and I have whatever, and you tell me what your advice is, but I'm the one at the keyboard, I can always still ultimately make the decision. I don't want to listen to what you say right now. I'm going with what I say.
I got a hunch the ace is coming.
Yeah, that's true too. That the person at the keyboard is probably going to make that last decision. But I even got in trouble over this, so I lectured Sorrell, I think you're just going to not have to do this anymore. You're a good player, play your stuff, forget about all that other things. Don't do anything.
Got a bright future with
let it go.
Don't do
let it go.
Yeah, basically what I said is don't do any gray area things. And I explained to him the things I do. I don't do anything that could look like it's cheating.
Right.
I've kept my reputation. One thing that people generally don't do at Chinese poker is they don't give the money back when they're overpaid. It's funny, when we were discussing this current scandal that I haven't talked about yet, about Chinese poker, was at the Chinese poker table, and at the same time this guy saying how bad that was, somebody overpaid him, and he knew it, and it was clear, and he didn't give the money back, and he was stealing that money at the time. Because people feel that kind of stealing is okay. People
it's
always
like a
have
cashier giving you too much change or something.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is even how you. I always, even when I was discussing with Sorrell, I think a lot of it is how you were raised. I was raised that if a cashier gave you a quarter too much and it was 2 miles to walk back to the store, you went back to the store and you gave that cashier the money back. Whether it was because
2 miles, that's
sometimes
far.
It's rational.
My parents said you call them, you tell them that they gave it too much. Next time you go and you bring it.
Well, sometimes it's rationalized as Well, and again, I even think it's how the children are taught that. Sometimes because that cashier will have to make it up.
Right.
Okay, well, that's what you were taught, right?
Yeah.
But I was taught there's right and there's wrong. And you try to do the right thing. And it doesn't have to have...
It's not your money.
It
It's not
doesn't have
right.
to be some reason of because someone else will be injured. But it's like try to do the right things and don't do the wrong things. And that's an overall better...
Do the right thing for the sake of doing the right thing.
And it's even being nice to people. It kind of falls into that. What we see all the time are, and what I'm always impressed by, people who are nice to people they don't have to be nice to.
Yeah.
I always hear this thing in the poker world where someone will say something negative, whether it's about a Sorrell or someone else. And I say they've been nice to me. And they'll say, well, of course they're nice to you. You know, you got a certain standing in poker. And they're kind of right, where if I see them nice to a porter,
right,
then they're good. Like one of the guys I like, I know I'm going way off the deep end. One of my favorite guys in sports is Charles Barkley. And the reason he's one of my favorite guys, in addition to he's open and honest and says things, is I've seen Charles with people that he didn't have to be nice to, and he could act like I'm a big shot.
Had nothing
and
to gain
even
from
myself, when I first met Charles, he could have easily acted like, I don't know who you are and I don't care. He said, hey, Barry, what's going on? You know, like he had immediately admitted he'd watch his poker, obviously, because he knew who I was. Mm-hmm. And he said, hey, do you know my friend Mike? And it was Mike Tyson, you know, stuff like that. And that's how he was with me, where he could have acted like I'm a higher, obviously he's a much higher celebrity status than I am. He could act like you're supposed to come to me and address me with respect because I'm a big shot. He's not
Charles
like
Barkley,
that. So yeah, he is that guy. And people who don't like him, he is a guy who's going to be nice to the guy mopping the floor.
Right.
And he's going to treat him the same as the president. So I respect people like that, frankly.
All right, so let's bring it back to Sorrell and Chinese
Sorrell.
poker.
Sorrell and Chinese poker from that long segue. So Sorrell has come to me a lot of times, what should I do here and what am I doing wrong? And now we have this thing. And I haven't talked to Sorrell, which is not a good thing for when people are trying to assess guilt versus innocence. If my own feeling is that if Sorrell had been stiffed by John Racner, he may have said, hey, what am I going to do? This guy says I cheated him. I didn't.
Right.
What do you think I should do? I didn't get that phone call. And that's a knock against.
So what is the story?
Circumstantial evidence. The story. Well,
what is he being
accused of? Let me give you the
of?
story. The story from Racner's side is they went up to Sorrell's room and they played Chinese poker with the Joker. And he was losing a lot of money.
They're each playing two hands?
They're playing two hands, but one person gets an extra card, or maybe they deal all the cards but one because there's a Joker in the deck.
Right.
One person can have a Joker.
Card.
And so he was down, and then he noticed Sorrell was dealing from the bottom, and then he checked out the deck, and that card was on the bottom. That's what Racner claims. Sorrell claims nothing like that was true. Oh, this is what Sorrell says. The way they were playing, one hand gets 14 cards, one hand gets 13, and it was his turn to get 14. So when Racner was saying, let me have that hand, it wasn't his turn.
Right.
And Sorrell saying no, it had nothing to do with being afraid to be caught cheating. It was his turn to have the advantage.
Right. The hands are not equal.
The hands aren't equal. Yeah, and that, no, he did grab the card, and the Joker was in that hand, but it wasn't the bottom card. It was somewhere towards the bottom. And it's just some guy taking a shot at me to not pay. That's what Sorrell's saying. So now I talked to Racner. Sounded believable to me what Racner said. And, I'm closer to Sorrell than Racner.
Right.
And, I even said to Racner, now there is some circumstantial evidence against Racner, and one that I'll throw out that people don't even know. The first thing everyone says is, if Sorrell was sending you, first of all, if Sorrell was sending you text about cheating, the biggest thing is nobody would ever delete those texts. They got the evidence.
Right.
They would show them to someone. They wouldn't delete them. The other thing is, if you were a cheater, wouldn't you be smart enough not to send text to someone admitting you're cheating?
Right.
That seems a little
Wait,
weird.
so that's part of the story is that John is saying that Sorrell has texted him admitting to what happened.
Admitting to him, but John has deleted the text. So people said, well, you can call your...
Wasn't it kind of like the stuff we talked about the other day about UB? It wasn't about the cheating. It was about, hey, don't go public with this, and, let's make this right privately.
Yeah, at least, UB didn't, send a bunch of text messages out saying about who cheated. They just acted like it didn't.
Right.
You were going to cover it up better than that. You would think, Sorrell's a bit of a knucklehead. But it seems like you would cover it up. The other negative thing, so these are things that make you wonder a little bit about
why isn't there more
Racner's story. And then Racner even said to me, I guess people are saying I should give the text messages, I should call my company. Do you think I can? And he'd already had 15 people tell him he could do it.
Right.
And he still comes to me and asks me. That's kind of weird. And I said, I'm just telling you, if you don't
Get him back.
If you don't, people are going to probably look at you as the flaky one. I'm telling you that right. And the other thing that people have against Raciner is he had some DUIs.
Right.
And they think a person who does DUIs sometimes lacks credibility. I don't know how that plays in.
Well, maybe he was drunk at the time, I think.
Actually, there was some drinking involved. Or so that's what they're saying also. And people are even suggesting maybe they both believe they're right. The racer does believe he got cheated, and Sorrell believes he. And
right,
Sorrell
no one's lying.
Cheat.
Maybe
they're not lying, but he believes this, and they got the story. That happens in situations too. The other thing, and we'll get to see how many people listen to Poker Road Radio, because once I say this, it's going to go somewhere. But at that same event, Raciner and Sorrell had a last longer bet in a tournament, and Raciner got crippled. And he came to Sorrell and said, "We've got about the same amount of chips. Why don't we call it off?"
Angle shot him there.
And Sorrell allowed him to call it off, and it was a lie. And people were surprised that Raciner took this shot, and it ended up Raciner outlasted him anyway. And then it was, I think, in the Fickle draw thing. But then here's the funny thing. So Raciner doesn't feel so bad that I just outed this. After the tournament, so you always see how people think what's right and wrong. Raciner then admitted to Sorrell that he hustled him. And he said to him, actually, when I told you, he said, "You're so lucky. I actually hustled you. I actually had almost no chips when we made that settlement, and then I ended up outlasting you." So people don't even know about that one.
That's just such a weird situation, because especially with him actually outlasting Sorrell, because I think that any deal made based on false information should nullify the deal.
Well, now
except for the fact that
someone once accused me of doing that. I beat someone in a bet, and they thought I had taken that shot against them. I always make, especially these younger kids, last longer bets, and I never take the best. But usually they have more chips than I do. And it was a guy. He doesn't play a lot now. He was a real good young tournament player. God, I can't. I'll get it in a minute. It's got something to do with the numbers. So
Eric,
something
1, 2,
million,
3.
something billion, something mega.
Gigabet.
Gigabet. That's it. I knew.
Nice job,
good
BJ.
Absolutely.
For a while, he was the
name?
only online.
What's
Daryl Dickin.
Daryl Dickin. We're in the horse tournament. I had way more chips, or he had way more chips than me, and we made a last longer bet because he wasn't as good a mixed game player as I was. And later he said, "You beat me, but you hustled me." And I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Oh, I saw when we made the bet you had way more than I did." And I said, "No, Daryl, I would never do that to you." He said, "That's okay. That's just my fault. I should have checked the chip." That's the way he looked at it.
Right.
Like, what he thought I did was fair, and he wasn't mad about it.
Right.
I said, "Trust me, I would never lie to you. I wouldn't have even made the bet if I had you out-chipped." I said, "Maybe when you finally came to look at my chips, I'd won a few pots. But no, I didn't lie to you." But that just tells you how some other people think. But anyway, so now I'm telling you things against Raciner. Now let me tell you things against Sorrell, which are worse than Raciners. One is, Sorrell's played like every big tournament for 3 years, didn't show up to this one. Now, in all fairness, he had told me in January he wasn't coming to this one because over Skype. I asked him where he was. He noticed when I was in Skype, and he said, "Yo, and he said, "I'm in Thailand. I'm doing something. I'm training. I'm doing something for something, and I'm probably not going to make it to the Commerce tournament."
I've been in Thailand doing something.
Yeah.
It's never good.
Right. But anyway, and he said, "I don't think I'm going to make it out there." So he had already said that, but maybe it was because of this thing going down that he thought something might happen, although I don't know if he knew Raciner was coming here. But that's weird that he's not here. The next thing is he texts up and back with Matt Glantz, who's like I don't text with Sorrell much, but he does with Matt Glantz. They're buds. They play Chinese poker online and different things. And he told Matt, "I didn't do it. This is a lie. This guy's just using my bad reputation against me." And then he even said, "What does Barry say about this?" And Matt told him, "Barry's sad because it looks incriminating towards you. I felt bad if this is true." And so it's a little strange that Sorrell didn't ask me directly anything at this point. I haven't spoken to Sorrell since this came down, but he has with Matt. And I only gave Matt one word of advice to give to Sorrell. I said, if you are dishonest, if you have cheated here, that's really bad, okay? And people aren't going to trust you from now on, for sure. The other stuff was maybe gray area or went over the line.
This is just
straight out cheating.
See, I thought the one word would be plastics.
But still, don't. Yeah, the one word I would give him is plastics, my boy. That's too old a reference for our listeners.
Sorry.
said it to Dustin Hoffman. But anyway, but I said, don't compound this, because the fact is he's not going to get excluded from live tournaments because he cheated in his room at poker game. The worst thing you can do beyond this, if it is true, is start blaming the other guy and saying it was him and saying all these bad things about him, especially because I have a feeling proof will surface one way or the other to prove if Racing is right. I'm assuming he will get those texts. We will get some evidence against Sorrell. We have seen in the past, whether it's the steroid users, Marion Jones,
right?
We've seen with Roger Clemens, and then we've seen Andy Pettit. He said he did it. He said he did for injury, whatever. People let him go. Even A-Rod, who people are kind of like, well, you know,
Michael Vick.
A-Rod said these things about.
He bragged.
Well, Michael Vick is even a different story.
People get forgiven, I think.
But the thing is, I don't want to say show remorse, because we don't trust remorse. We get it from politicians who cheat on their wives. But what I'm not even saying about that, because, you know, I'm kind of, you know, is it really remorse or is it really fake?
Right.
I don't know about the sincerity stuff.
I'm saying this because I'm supposed to be
I'm supposed to say to my agent wrote this for me.
Yeah.
I don't trust all these apologies myself. But there's a big difference, whether I trust that or not, between someone who now goes after other people. Marion Jones said, I'm going to sue all you people for trashing my name. That immediately makes you know, if you do something wrong, like we've all done something wrong with our wives or girlfriends, and now she catches you.
I have never been near your wives or
girlfriends.
Right.
But I'm saying and I'm not even saying cheating, and then you like put it on her, like you're the bad person.
I will say the one
That's
time I got accused of cheating, that I was like completely not culpable in any way and had proof of it and all that, I laughed hysterically, and I was like, you're going to feel so dumb when you figure out that. And I didn't get mad, and I didn't scream and yell. I didn't say, how dare you accuse me.
A lot of guilty people, then they jump and they try to make the other person.
Right, no, I was just like, look, I don't really have to argue with you because I'm innocent. Here's the evidence. Like, I can't wait for your apology.
Yeah, the one time you were innocent.
The one time I was, yes.
But what I'm getting at is, so my advice was dummy up and don't say anything, and you know, whether you're going to admit that you did it or not, but don't compound this mistake and make it so you're someone who not only cheats,
don't go on
and
the
lies
attack.
and do that. You know, we understand in money business, some people have, like, say, these morals that any way I can get extra money, I get it. It's, you know, I play with some people even at the highest stakes that will do anything to get the money. They would happily mark the cards if they think they could get away with it. And even with all this UB stuff and cheating scandals and AP stuff, when people honestly are asked if you secretly had a way to see other people's hole cards, would you use it? Most people say, yeah, I'd get all the money I could. You know, I would do it. I mean, I remember they had a poll, you know, on 2+2 about this, and I was surprised that people were that honest. It was like one of those 80% or whatever said yes, they would, and then those people accused the other 20% of lying about it. You know, that they said they wouldn't, and they would call the thing and say somehow I'm seeing the whole card. So the point is, a lot of people would cheat if they could get away with it. That is how it is in a lot of money businesses. Lots of corporations have done shady things, going into other companies'
Lots
garbage
of them.
cans.
All the corporations
hiring
do
people
shady
to
things.
undercut their opposition. You know, even the WP was sued, and we're on a WP thing at one point has changed for where they feel they're stifling the competition, whether it was fairly or unfairly. Right. You know, the monopoly stuff, which is always gray area stuff. Big companies like Microsoft stole Apple's stuff.
Who stole it from Xerox?
Initial operating system that made them get money was actually stolen from something. You know, I'm in the early days of microcomputer. They stole it from a guy named Gary Kildall. It was his PhD thesis. He had a company called Digital Research, I guess. They stole that and sold it to IBM for a cheaper thing. That's how Microsoft got started, on just theft. And I don't think it's out there. I'm in the business, so I know. I don't think it's totally out.
He's
how
in the
this company
business.
was formed.
You're talking about the early DOS.
He hasn't written a line of code since 1971.
DOS was a stolen product. That's how they made their company. Stolen product. So people do funny things for money and build up big corporations out of it. And just because some people feel whatever you can do. And what do you do if you're Microsoft and the lawsuits come? You get enough money, you can fight them.
Yeah, at that point you've got the
or
money
you just
to
pay
win.
off too,
or you pay off a crime, or even you.
Microsoft's biggest mistake was not having lobbyists on the payroll until it was too late.
Yeah, well, they did eventually, and they did pay off lots of money, but they had money to pay off by the time they'd done it. And you know, on Facebook, whatever, they're accused of stealing their stuff too. But anyway, so some people just don't have the same morals as other people. Some people do anything. And Sorrell's, his thinking isn't in the right place. It's clear because I've talked to him. He's opened up and honest with me about why, even about how he's raised and how he did certain things. If he's going to survive in this community, he's a good player. I think at this point a lot of people are never going to give him the benefit of the doubt that he's
at best he's on thin ice. At best,
yeah.
Right.
But I don't know. It's not. You just have to. I think it's the right move. I learned early on in poker, being honest is not only the right thing to do, and being good people is the right thing to do. It actually, even because people always say from a pragmatic point of view, it's not the right. Even from a pragmatic point. I don't mean from a good karma point of view. I mean from people being good to you, and when you need it and you're down, people helping you. An honest person who treats people well gets that reciprocated.
Right.
Barry,
it works out.
Not that I love
run.
quoting Rounders, but I think it's from Rounders. But you can shear a sheep many times, but you can only skin it once. And it's just the same thing with many businesses that I deal with, and that. At the last second when they raise the price on you or they do something a little shady and they burn you for life. Like, you will make more money in the long run being an honest person, getting people to take your action than you will if you cheat someone once and no one will take your action anymore.
I used to have that. I even still, not as much when I was younger, people wouldn't play against me because I was a known good player. I didn't get invited to certain games, whatever. But I had many situations where I did get into games because at least they knew they were going to get an honest deal.
Right.
And they'd say, I don't trust this guy. I had people, recreational players with a lot of money, want to even play me, heads up or shorthanded. And they just said, I can afford it. I don't care if I lose, but at least this other guy does shady things. You've never done anything dishonest. So I'd rather play with you.
All right, losing legitimately, yeah. Losing when you think the other guy is cheating is just, there's nothing about it that's fun.
Well, we hope that Sorrell and John get this worked out and that the truth does eventually come out. I wanted to talk a little bit about Helmuth saying that he may be the next color commentator in the World Series of Poker. We're not going to get to that. We'll try to get to it tomorrow. Right now we've got Kathy Liebert waiting in the wings, been waiting very patiently for us to get through all that Sorrell stuff, so we're going to talk to Kathy right after this. Welcome back to PokerRoad Radio, brought to you by Lock Poker, coming to you from the World Poker Tour's Los Angeles Poker Classic. The World Poker Tour can now be seen every Sunday night at 8 and 11 p.m. on FSN. Right now, we're lucky to be joined by the all-time money-winning female, and she is still alive in this tournament. Welcome to the show, KFL. Are you aware of that nickname? Are you aware that you have that nickname?
No, what does that mean?
It stands for Kathy fucking Liebert. That's what someone told me, that some dealer in some game on the forums just started calling you Kathy fucking Liebert. I like it. KFL. What do you like better, KFL or Poker Cat?
Oh, well, I usually go by Poker Cat.
I don't know. I think KFL's for the new generation. Now, Kathy was a little, when I told her that Barry's going to be hosting the show, Kathy was like, Barry, really? Why? And I was like, well, because he's a co-host on the show. And she's like, I think Barry might be mean to me. And I promised her that Barry wouldn't be mean. But I'm guessing now maybe there's some bad blood between you guys because I heard Barry walked in on you in the bathroom one time.
Yeah, he came into the women's room. Yeah.
Barry, well, I mean, come on. You don't get enough ass on your own. You got to go to the women's room?
Once you get to a certain age, you're allowed to do senile-looking things. And there were 2 doors to bathrooms. And, I guess I'm supposed to look at the caricatures
skirt,
or whatever
right.
the things are. But I walked in and I said, boy, I would have expected more people to be in this bathroom on a break. I guess I caught a lucky bathroom. where was it? Mohegan Sun
right.
or something like that. And then the next thing that was kind of disconcerting was I couldn't find where the urinals were, and I was looking around the corner.
You're like, why is there a couch here instead of urinals?
Right. And then it still hadn't hit to me. Again.
Until they saw me, then they figured either I was in the men's room or...
Yeah. It was either Kathy was in the men's room and I was in the women's room, and I decided she's younger than I am. I'm probably the one who went in the wrong place.
Now, Kathy, you are still alive in this tournament, so that's good news.
Yeah, I've been struggling with a short stack the whole tournament, so it's pretty good to still be in with the final 18.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the update team has been telling me, that you've been nursing the short stack for a couple days now. How have you managed to stay afloat?
Well, at one point I caught a rush of cards, but then I had like aces and jacks, and I got up to 100,000. But then right after that, I got 2 kings cracked and got back down to 20,000. But basically, I've been playing very tight and just waiting for hands, and lucky enough to get them when I'm short and move in and just surviving.
Have you doubled up with any of these move-ins, or people just know that you've been playing so tight that...
Yeah, I've doubled up sometimes. Sometimes they folded, but I have had some double ups. Yeah.
What are some
winning races, or you were just?
Yeah, I had ace queen against 2 4s one time. One time I had, I think 2 10s against. So yeah, I've had a few races and a few where I had the dominant hand.
Where was the last? When was the last double up that you had?
It was ace queen against 4s.
And how many hours ago? Like how many hours before the end of play?
Not too long ago. I'd say maybe an hour ago. I moved in against the blind.
I've been sweating for a while, and I haven't seen you play very many hands at all. Are there some decent hands that you're sort of passing on that you're just trying to hang on there, or what? Like, what are some of the best hands you're folding?
I folded ace rag a bunch of times. I folded 2 7s once because it was raised and moved in by somebody else. There was a spot where I probably would have moved in myself, even with the raise, just because I was kind of short. No, I really haven't had. I have had some big hands, but not too many. And today was pretty card dead. And I had one little rush there for a little while. Like I said, I got up to over 100,000, but then right after that, I got kings cracked and got down back down to 20. I've had some big hands, but for the most part, I've never played this tight in a tournament, to be honest.
Yeah,
hardly playing any hands.
How low are you willing to let yourself go before it's time for any two?
Well, it really depends on the situation. I guess.
Will you get down to 3 big blinds, 5 big blinds?
Hopefully not. I'd like to move in, but I know that there's a lot of young, aggressive, internet-type players at the table, so I don't really think I'm going to run over them, although I'm sure I have a tight reputation now because I really haven't been playing very much. I'd rather move in, obviously, when I have a chance that they'll fold rather than getting so low. So we'll just have to see. Obviously, tomorrow I'll have to play some pots.
Joe, if she gets a good hand, she's going to play it. A bad hand, she's going to fold it.
I don't know. I can't.
You're getting real tight. How many? She doesn't say, okay, I've got 4 big blinds. I'm playing it.
Well, if I get down to 4 big blinds, obviously now I can't bluff.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to probably be all in on the big blind if I get to that situation if I don't have a hand. But, obviously I'd like to move in before that situation happens.
Well, you mentioned in the last answer some young, aggressive internet-type players, and I was looking at your Twitter, and one of your tweets said, "It is more difficult to win these days. The younger players are more aggressive and increase variance for everyone. Adjust or be run over." How have you adjusted over the last couple of years?
Well, I'm still trying to adjust to it. They are super aggressive. They're constantly 3-betting. They're constantly raising. They're very tough to run over. I try to bluff them, and it doesn't seem to work too well. I would say that I'm playing much more solid than the average player that's playing these days. But at the same time, I don't try not to get run over. If I have a hand, I'll move in. I'm not just going to fold every hand. If I have something that I think is decent, and especially if they're raising in a late position, I'm more likely to move in on them than. But if I have nothing, I've been folding.
So, in an attempt to adapt, as you mentioned, who are some of the players that you who are younger, who you feel like maybe something can be learned from, or maybe, how are you adapting? Do you read the forums? Are you watching players on TV? What sorts of things are you doing?
I actually think I should probably be reading the forums more and really getting a better feel for how the young players are playing. I get a feel by playing, but I haven't really done as much studying and as much, as they have been, as they're doing. So I kind of would like to have a better sense of what they're doing. I know they're 3-betting light. I know they're calling a lot. I see them calling down, on the flop, the turn of the river, and they can't beat top pair often. I see them calling down with ace high, with 2 9s when it's king high on the board, that kind of thing.
That's not going to usually do too well against you.
No. They should realize that I'm not playing a lot of hands, and if I continue to bet, that I probably have that beat. But
I think one thing, I'm sure Kathy sees it and I see it too, is it's tough when people are aggressive and 3-betting you all the time and you aren't open that much, and sometimes it will force you to tighten up. But with a lot of these guys, what happens is they're overdoing it. They're trying to outplay people, and now you can just sit back and collect. Like, they'll make, sometimes they'll put in too many chips. It'll be 3-bet to you, and you're sitting there with aces or kings or even aces.
Yeah, earlier in the tournament, honestly, I was trying to outplay the players a little bit. I was re-raising a little bit looser and stuff like that.
That's tough,
and when they were limping, I was raising them, and it didn't work. They would just call me every time or try to outplay me on the flop. So I tightened up. I basically didn't try to outplay them anymore. I tried to wait for a hand, and it got me this far. I'm not saying that's how I'm always going to play. I really didn't have a lot of choices because I never really had a chip stack where I could really put a lot of pressure. Certainly I'm willing to mix it up a little bit with them, but I don't have the kind of stack. I never had the kind of stack where I could just call them down. I really had to make,
Yeah,
so.
Kathy's not a niche. She was never like a player that you thought she's just going to sit there tight and do nothing. She'll do stuff, but it's like when you're playing against aggressive players, it changes your game, and she's going to adapt to it.
Yeah, if I think I can run over them, and there's been times when I've been one of the most aggressive players at the table. Yeah. But I just don't feel like that's working against these kind of players. I don't see them backing down at all, even when I am playing tight. They don't seem to, even when I have a tight reputation or looking like a nit, they still come. So yeah, I can actually play tighter and get away with it in that case. Well, but when I see the players, I want to mix it up and play with them and be more aggressive at times. If I think it will work.
Sure.
Maybe the players that know me, the older players, maybe I can
like a
bluff
Barry
them.
Greenstein over here.
Yeah, I mean the players that know that I'm usually solid, they're probably not going to mess with me as much, But
now, the strategy you have adapted for this tournament has gotten you this far, has got you to 18th place. Are there any hands that you were confused by? Any hands that you would maybe have done differently if you had it to do over again in this particular tournament, or do you feel like you've played pretty optimally for the cards you've been dealt and the players you've been playing against?
Wow, that's a really tough question. I mean, you never really know 100%. I mean, obviously, if you go back and do it over again, there's probably a few hands that, one hand the guy bluffed me and showed me, but no. I mean, I'm basically trying to play.
Can you take us through the hand and maybe why you came to the determination that he had it?
Well, it was just a ridiculous spot, actually. Guy raised in late position, and this guy smooth called from the cutoff. And I re-raised out of the blind, and the razor folded, and this guy called, and the flop came ace high, and I had 2 kings, and I decided to lead at it. Sometimes I would check and call in that spot, but I just wanted to kind of find out right there, and he's supposed to have some sort of hand here. Anyway, so he raised me on the flop, and I folded, and he showed me queen 10. He says, "Oh yeah, I knew that you were going to re-raise and try to run over us because he, this kind of, he thought I was doing like a squeeze play.
So he
kind
put
of
you
thing.
on a hand that wasn't as good as you had.
Yeah, he thought I was on a squeeze play, and I mean, he had no clue that I had 2 kings, until I said, "Yeah, nice play, you got lucky there." And then he's like, "Oh, you had a hand," So, but okay, fine. But
can I ask a question?
Please, Barry.
Kathy's been the standard for women tournament players for many years.
Absolutely.
Now. I mean, they kind of stole her thunder a little bit unfairly when Annie won that. She won $2 million in a sit and go that Kathy wasn't invited to. I've never felt that they should include invitational tournaments in those things. And so people said, okay, now Annie's number 1, you're number 2. And then what would Kathy do? Just won a bunch of money in about a year and a half and passed her up anyway. And like she was just standing still. Admittedly, Kathy's played a lot of tournaments that time. But since that time, and she even deserved the title before that, I don't think Annie's thing should have counted. But now it's been years where Kathy's just... the standard. She's Roger Federer, really, of women's poker. It's like she's there and everyone else is trying to catch her. But now
she's like the Roger Federer because she has a lot of aces.
I guess so. But now there are 2 women, because Kathy's in the over 40 group and they're in the under 30 group, that it's pretty clear are going to pass her up at some time in their lifetimes, and those are Annette Oberstad and Vanessa Selbst. It's pretty clear it's going to happen. Because Kathy's not going to be able to play forever. Maybe she will, but
sure. No, I mean I've already cut back.
And you're going to cut back, and they're pretty aggressive, and they're they're out to get it.
Vanessa Selbst has been very impressive. I mean, I don't know
and they're impressive players, and it's going to happen. So it's a Jack Nicklaus Tiger Woods thing, even
right.
So what are your thoughts? Are you going to fight them till the death and to keep?
And I would just like to add on to Barry's question because I had a similar one I was waiting to ask. Is that I would like to know what you think about a couple other players too, including Lauren Kling, Liv Barry as well.
I mean, I'm not playing as many tournaments, and I'm sure I will cut back. I mean, to be honest, some of these tournaments are very long days for me. It's a grind, and, I don't really need to grind out tournaments as much anymore. And, I mean, I still enjoy them sometimes. But, no, I'm sure Vanessa and Annette, they're very young, they're very talented. I'm sure that they will, eventually make a lot more, especially the prize pools are a lot bigger these days. When I first started, the prize pools are very small. In the last 5 years, now it's commonplace to have $1 million tournament. When I first started, 100,000 was maybe the average prize pool. So, But, and when I first started, there was very, very few women players that were playing.
Right.
And of the ones that were playing, most of them were not that good. And I do see a lot of talent among some of the younger players that are coming up from the internet. They're very competitive, So I do think we'll see a lot more successful women, young women coming up. So, I'm very impressed with Vanessa Selbst. I haven't really played with Liv Barry very much. Who was the other one you mentioned?
Lauren Kling.
Lauren Kling. I only played with her briefly, one time in a women's tournament. So I really haven't played with a lot of the young women players.
Is there anyone that you feel is really overrated?
Yeah,
I mean, you don't have to answer that, certainly, if you don't want
Outside
to.
of me.
Outside of Barry Greenstein.
I mean, Annie was very good at promoting herself and everything like that, but she's never been a really super successful tournament player. She's never actually even played tons of tournaments. She's been very good at the PR side of it.
Right.
And I'm sure she's not a bad player, but she's certainly not the number one woman player. I mean, not even close. There's a lot of women players that are much more successful and play a lot more and have a lot more experience, and probably, she's not close to a lot of these young aggressive players. I'm impressed with a lot of them. Annie, I think, is a little bit more aggressive than the typical woman player. The typical woman player doesn't seem to be as aggressive and as fearless as a lot of these up-and-coming women players.
Speaking of Annie, you are first on the all-time women's money list, whether the things have been fudged or not. You're still in there. Does it annoy you that stat is occasionally fudged by other players, that occasionally another name gets slipped in there?
Well, it kind of bothers me when Annie goes around telling everybody she's the number one ranked woman tournament player. If other people say...
No, she didn't say number one ranked tournament. She's number one. They have on her site.
She says
number one player in the world.
I've actually heard her say twice. In fact, one was in front of Congress and one was on a TV show, that she is the all-time leading money winner among women.
So she just dismissed you just
offhand? Right.
Yeah,
which is a lie.
Lying to Congress is just no big deal.
It's pretty common.
Yeah, she gave that
address. But she lied on television. Now that can't be forgiven.
They can't give her perjury. I thought that's a serious
charge.
Yeah,
actually, I saw the address she gave. She's well-spoken, and I saw this other show, 1 versus 100, and when I'm watching that and she's saying I'm the all-time I've won the most of all the women, I'm like, no, and that does bother me. I mean, it's one thing to have to go around saying I'm the greatest and stuff like that, but when you actually make a blatant lie and people believe her and nobody.
Well, and they have Annie for $2 million in that thing. Like I said, it shouldn't even count. And of course, the word on the street is she even chopped that up. And supposedly in the Hendemom database, they're supposed to have the settlements in there too.
Right. If you took out the $2 million, Vanessa and Annette, I think, would have more than her.
I'm sure they would.
So,
are you happy with the moves that are being made to sort of adjust these figures and make things a little more fair for everyone?
Well, I mean, I don't really think people really know the figure. I mean, most people don't really know the numbers. I don't go around saying, "Oh, I have 5.6 million. I'm the top women, leading money winner very often or anything."
And you have to play the other side of it. Kathy's got a great record. We can see, especially on the WPT, what she's done. No one's close. She has played more tournaments than any other woman also.
Sure.
We have Kathy on the women's side who's played the most tournaments. Then you see people like Phil Hellmuth, Scotty, and men. And then TJ is fourth, I think, who've played the most tournaments. So tournaments is always kind of a funny thing to evaluate anyway.
Right.
We don't do it by a batting average. But no matter how many tournaments Kathy's played, her record certainly stands up. And I think more than the record, you always look who stays there, who can get deep in tournaments, because a lot of times the edit is just winning a race or losing a race. Kathy's there, and so you can see if she's at the table, she's one of the tough players. So the players know that, she's a real player, whereas there are some other people, they may have just by variance.
I think among the people that play, the regular poker players, they know who the best players are and who the successful players are and who, they have a pretty good idea of how people play and how tough they are. Whereas the people that just watch ESPN, they really don't know because they focus on the players that, for whatever reason, they think are entertaining or whatever, and it's not always the players that are the best or whatever. In fact, a lot of times the best players, like, look at Phil Ivey.
The best players like Michael Carroll that we see on TV all the time? And no offense to Michael Carroll,
I haven't played with him, but that guy's got chips a bunch of times, so I assume he's doing something.
I mean, a lot of people know that Phil Ivey's one of the best, but he doesn't go around jumping up and down and making a big, noise and fuss like that. But a lot of times ESPN, they come over with the camera, they come over with the cameras, they come over with the mic, and they want you to say something. They want you to be entertaining. And if you're getting up like Mike Matasow or like the guy that barks like a dog or whatever, you're going to get a lot more airtime. And then people are going to, when people see them on TV, they say, "Oh, that's one of the best players." They don't see the people that just kind of in the background.
You are entertaining. It's just you're entertaining at the table when the cameras aren't there.
Yeah, I'm not trying to put on a show for the cameras. If they come over with the camera and the mic, I usually don't put on a show for them or say anything. It's just not, I like to have fun at the table, but I'm not doing it for the cameras or for the.
Well, those of us, who know poker know that you're, one of the best. You're always one of the last people standing, it seems like, all the time in these tournaments. From what I can tell, though, you haven't put up a W in a little while. What's about, is it a late game problem? Is it getting unlucky late? What do you attribute that to?
Oh, I had the worst year ever, actually, in poker last year.
Yeah, I noticed that 2010 was your first year where you had less than six figures cashing since 2002, which was a seven-figure year.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a winning player just every year since like '01 or something, and last year I had my first losing year in a very long time. And
so, what do you attribute that to?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously ran bad. I mean, I'm sure that I could be playing better. I mean, you can always improve and be more focused. I think that focus is important. And the players today do play differently, and they do play better. But yeah, I ran really bad. I mean, I would have 2 kings, and they would be raising me with, a 6-8, and it would come 4-5-7, or they'd have 9-10, it would come 9-9. That kind of stuff seemed to happen all the time. And I mean, even the best players have bad years or can run bad for a while. It is a streaky thing that has a lot of variance. And I am actually thinking about how they're playing more and trying to adjust a little bit more. I'm not usually the kind of player that calls down on the flop, the turn of the river.
Right.
And I see a lot of players doing that, and a lot of times people are bluffing. So maybe I do have to become more. I mean, I never liked the idea of being a calling station, but maybe sometimes I have to do that more, especially if they
pot control gear.
Yeah, especially if they think they can run over you, which So I mean, I can make some adjustments, I'm sure, and improve my game. But I mean, there is a lot of luck in poker as well, especially with these big fields.
Now, I wanted to get your opinion on something that's part of the poker industry, not necessarily about playing poker. You tweeted, "Can anyone guess why the Federated Poker League is slow to disseminate all the information about the league? Players, sponsors, TV, curious." Now, is this you really just being curious, or do you sort of have...
Yeah, I am curious. I mean, they announced this Federated Poker League, and it sounds good.
This is the Annie Duke, Jeffrey Pollock venture.
Yeah. And, I mean, the idea sounds...
Kathy's earlier comments just got her cut out, but anyway.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, I've been uninvited to a lot of TV things. I don't try to be PC. I don't really care about the TV or the invitational stuff.
By the way, I'm sure I told you, when we had the PPL, which is similar to this, I was the main spokesman for getting Kathy in that.
Oh, really? I thought you said you voted against me.
I voted for it. I pushed. I said poker is more like a sport. You should get people based in on merit more than all these peripheral things and whatever. And no, I actually voted for you in that.
Well,
really?
the Federated, they say that it'll be based purely on stats. That there's no voting panel, there's no politics, there's no lobbying. Once they set up the system, it'll be you either hit it or you don't.
Yeah,
I would imagine that you're going to hit it.
I think I'm going to be invited. I mean, but the thing is that I'm curious, why do they make this a big announcement and try to make it a big thing and then not tell you? They say, why is it taking them 2 months to tell you who's invited? I mean, I don't understand.
Again, Jeffrey, don't get mad at me, but a lot of people think that they're trying to figure out the right system to get the people in who they want. They got, what I'm saying?
That's exactly.
It's almost like...
Well, take the people behind it out of it, okay? I have nothing to say about those people. I love Jeffrey Pollock, think he's great, but that's the first thing that came to mind when you said that. I was like, okay, how are they going to come up with the statistics parameters that they need in order to get the people in that they want?
Right. Yeah, at that point, they can bias it, but once they set it, then you can still go out. And
most of these TV shows they do, like the NBC Heads Up, they say the greatest players. They're not the greatest players.
Don Cheadle and no offense, Barry, to your kissing maid, but Shannon Elizabeth, I'm not sure they're the two best Heads Up players.
I mean, if you at least be honest, say this is a TV invitational that we thought we'd invite people that we want to invite. But
right.
I mean,
a mix of different.
It's not the and I was just talking to Carlos Mortensen. He said he's not invited to the NBC Heads Up, and he wasn't. He didn't get to play in the invitational at the World Series. Now I'm not in Carlos's league in terms of money won and tournaments won and everything like that. I mean, he's one of the very best. He's one of the top in the money.
Not many people are in Carlos's league.
No,
as far as
it's a dirty half dozen.
I mean, if you look at, we never look at batting average, but there is a good chance that Carlos has the best record in tournaments of anyone. That he's actually the number one tournament player in the world. If you look at what he's accomplished, he hasn't played as much as some of the other people.
He's won like 3 WPTs.
Yeah, he's got an amazing record. I mean, actually, the other people that they never guess who's got for amount of terms he's played and what he's done. There are 2 people way above everyone else, and you wouldn't even guess the other one. His name is Gus Hansen. If you look what Gus has won, and even won like a WSOP Heads Up.
Yeah, final table.
Gus's record and Carlos's record, I think they're like way up here, and third place
Carlos
is way below.
Is certainly one of the very best. He certainly has one of the very best records, and for him not to be invited, I mean, it's and it's ridiculous. I'm not. I don't consider myself the very best or anything, but the women they invite are not even in any. I mean, they're not even close to the top 64. But obviously, I don't wear low cut blouses and try to put on a lot of makeup and play by the camera.
That's all you have to do.
Kathy, I want to. If you go to PokerCat.com, your website.
Have you ever been invited to the NBC Heads Up?
Yeah, I think I was invited the first year. I played the first year.
Okay, yeah. I mean, and really for Kathy and even Carlos to keep getting invited because they aren't as demonstrative and as some of the other people. They're poker player. When you're a poker player,
well, the reason I'm not invited, may not be because of my it's probably because of my personality, but not because I'm not demonstrative enough. Actually, I think that there was a little bit of falling out with one of the producers a while back. He got mad at me about something.
Yeah, because you were doing a fair amount of complaining the first Poker Superstars about structures and this and that.
Actually, it wasn't that particular thing, although that might that might be true. But Eric Drake actually didn't like the fact that there was like a free roll thing that we did or something, and he didn't. It wasn't a free roll; it was a buy-in, and he didn't put the buy-in up, and he thought I was insulting him in some way because I said, "Oh, how come he's not putting up the buy-in or whatever?"
I think you must understand the situation. Actually, I heard that. But besides that, what really happened with a lot of the people, whether it's Kathy or even a Greg Raymer or some of these other people who aren't being invited back, they didn't get as many shots as maybe they deserved or as other people, and they had to get lucky. We know it's a bit of a crapshoot. Carlos, I'm probably responsible for Carlos not being in. I played him in the first round one of the years, and I just held over him and won every single hand.
Right.
And he got knocked out, and so he didn't build up a resume with that show.
Right.
We have all these different shows. If Kathy had won one of those Superstars things or done real well in one of the early
Actually, I didn't do very well in the Superstar, Poker Star, the Superstar.
Yeah, but then they canceled that show. So you would have been like...
No, they uninvited me the third year.
That was because of the argument and everything. Yeah. But normally what happens with each one of these shows, they try to build a story.
Yeah.
And so you got to get, and there is a lot of luck in this stuff. And, so we have people like...
But Eric Seidel and Annie Duke, they never won anything until the last one, and they were invited back.
But Annie has some extra things that make it so people in mainstream know who she is.
Right.
Well, there's the personal politics. There's also the sponsorship politics. I mean, do you think, because if you're signed with a big site, they're kind of helping push you along in promotion and things like that.
The people that choose are the producers of the show, and they choose who they like or who they're friends with or whatever, and
but so much of it, because I know how it goes with the NBC heads up. Maury or whoever gives them a big list, and the people at NBC who aren't as poker knowledgeable as we are, they know certain names that they've heard they've been promoted. If you're promoted by a website also, your name's out there more. If you've been on TV shows like Annie, immediately that is an attractive thing to them.
Especially at NBC TV
So I think Annie was probably someone who easily got in from their point of view because she's in other things.
Right.
And so, that whole plays, and they say, yeah, I know him, and then they have a list. It isn't necessarily the list that Maury agrees with, poker-wise. We're often thinking poker-wise who deserves to be there. They're thinking who's going to maybe create viewers for our show. And so that's ultimately how it goes down. I mean, you would think the number one woman tournament player in the world would be a nice tagline to put under someone, and would.
But you know what? I mean, they don't even say that. They don't even say that in the ESPN or anything like that either.
I was talking about Annie.
Yeah.
Kathy, one last thing I want to ask you about before we let you go. You got a big day tomorrow. Got to nurse that short stack just a little bit longer. Hopefully, a lot longer.
Hopefully, I get some big hands and I turn it into a big stack.
I heard that Phil Ivey offered you a certain dollar amount to stop wearing purple. Is that true? And how much did you eventually turn down? What were the terms of this bet?
Yeah, that is true. At first, he offered me like $5,000 not to wear purple for a year, and I was like, no way. Yeah. And then he was like 10, and I was like, no, I didn't even think about it. And then I kind of said under my breath, well, for 20, I might have thought about it. He's like, okay, 20, And then I was like, nah, so didn't do it.
What dollar amount would it take?
I don't know. If you'd offered me 50, I think I probably would have gone for it.
It probably depends when. After she final tables this tournament, she won't need money so much, so then the price will go up.
Was that what it is if you win this thing?
Well, I mean, honestly, $20,000, $30,000 is not going to change my lifestyle at all. I mean, as Daniel Negreanu pointed out, I don't spend all my money on clothes. But,
yeah, I heard there was some romantic thing between you and Daniel on the forums. Did you read about that, Joe?
Yeah, I heard about that, too, that it was on the Internet. Yeah, it was actually a misunderstanding. I was at a poker table with one of these young kids, and I was kind of talking a little bit, and I mentioned Daniel, and he wrote on the forum that Daniel and I had a thing, which isn't true.
Well, Daniel has a thing with everyone, apparently, on the forums. Even he and I have been rumored before, so...
That's how you got your gig.
That's exactly how I got my gig on PokerStars. Me and Daniel were an item for a hot minute. Kathy, thanks very much for being with us. We appreciate it. Good luck tomorrow. Hopefully we'll see you at the final table.
Okay, thank you.
By the way, Poker Road has a great track record. Come on Poker Road Radio, make the final table.
Well, that's why I came.
Poker Road Radio, back after this. Welcome back to Poker Road Radio, brought to you by Lock Poker, coming to you from the World Poker Tour's LAPC. That's the Los Angeles Poker Classic. Remember, you can now check out the World Poker Tour every Sunday night at 8 and 11 p.m. You can also check out the Jess and BJ show on the Poker Road homepage. And they're doing a show every day.
And you know what? I was reminded after Kathy finished her interview, she got up and her and Barry started talking, which was...
She finally came out with why she was scared of Barry in the first place, which she didn't actually say. But she was, I guess Barry and Kathy have a long-standing debate that if you break down by per tournament, Mimi's actually got better numbers than Kathy does. And it turned into awkwardness for a second because neither one of them really wanted to let up until Kathy finally just shuffled away.
Yeah, well, because Kathy said, like, Mimi didn't play in this WPT event, and she doesn't usually play the big tournaments anymore. Mm-hmm. Kathy said she's so good, why isn't she playing them? I said, because Mimi supports lots of people in Vietnam and here, and she works every day as a cash game player. You know, cash game player is different than a tournament player. But per tournament, Mimi, who doesn't play that many tournaments, her record actually is better than Kathy's, probably maybe even in the WPT. Well, Kathy's got a lot. Mimi, I know in her first 12 World Series events, had 2 seconds, a third, and a fourth. She plays maybe 2 tournaments at the World Series every year. She went deep in a no-limit tournament last year at the World Series, playing only like 2 or 3 events. She didn't even play the main event this year. She's grinding as a cash game player. Per tournament,
she's got to put food on the table.
She's probably she's maybe got a 1.4 million in tournament winnings. She's played 1/10 the tournaments that Kathy has for sure.
Right.
That would be 14 million.
Right.
That would be double Kathy.
Right.
Mimi, by the way, has a better record than Phil Hellmuth in tournaments. Per tournament. No, not even close. For what Mimi's done percentage-wise for what she's cashed and done.
Batting average.
So batting average, she's ahead of both of them for sure. And by the way, in cash games, what she did to Phil Hellmuth, Mimi is the only one I've ever heard Phil Hellmuth admit is better than him. Because they used to play every day at Bay 101. She used to send him home broke every day for years. And then one time somebody said, so are you better than Mimi Tran? And he said, well, I don't ever remember beating her, and we play like a few times a week. So I guess it's kind of hard for me to say I'm better
yes,
than Mimi.
asterisk.
No,
right, yeah, exactly.
I'm still better, but I've never beaten her.
He said, I guess
that's
Mimi's,
as close as you're going to get.
He said, I guess Mimi's better than me at Limit Hold'em because she's the biggest winner, and she's beaten me really badly. And the funny thing is, the first time they played a live
that's something
tournament,
to put in your tombstone.
The first time she played a live tournament, she made a straight flush against his nut flush and busted him. And then he said, this is why she beats me.
There you go. Yeah, he couldn't
There's
admit
the
skill.
asterisk.
The run good.
See, hearing Barry and Kathy reminded me of Jess and BJ. It was just that.
Oh, is that what the Jess and BJ show's
the,
like? Just awkwardness, 2 people just refusing to budge, and then finally, okay, let's just move on.
Awkwardness and arguments. That should be our motto.
I would have felt bad if that had happened on the air, like I blindsided her, but we're talking about it now anyway. We are all out of time for today's show, but I did want to make one more big announcement this week. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make the biggest one, the one you guys are really going to love. I got told that it was okay, but really not a good idea to do until it was really, really a done deal. So the biggest one I can promise you is that I have been offered and I have accepted the color commentary role on the NAPT broadcast. So you guys will be seeing me on ESPN2 alongside...
who's doing it now?
I believe it was Norman Lawn who were doing it before for the first season, and PokerStars has decided they want to go a different direction with the commentary, so it's going to be me and...
Oh, nice.
I love as well, so you guys will be getting a little more Stapes in the color commentary role.
And more movie references.
That's right, way
so you
more.
Could be nominated next year twice for announcer of the year.
For commentator of the year. I can split the vote with myself. So anyway, I'm pretty excited about that. We're going to be recording some shows in New York City at the end of March. Not sure when they're airing, but I will let you guys know as soon as I do. That's all the time we've got for Poker Road Radio this episode. But we'll be coming at you guys again tomorrow, and I think we're going to have a special guest host. Excuse me, Scott Huff. Who's he? That's right. Who is Scott Huff?
Wait. I thought he retired. What the hell is this?
He's a special guest host. He's not hosting the show. Special guest host, Scott Huff.
I feel lied to.
You feel lied to. That's all right. He's going to be here. He's going to be
plugging his project. There must be an angle here.
He's going to make it all better. Scott's going to make it all better.
Does he have a new book coming out?
John Falong's got something to say about this.
He's trying to kill every podcast on Poker Road.
Yeah. That's right, yeah. He's going to come put Poker Road Radio to bed. Anyway, I want to thank our...
Silent Bob speaking. It's
That's right.
Always worthwhile.
John Falong finally coming up out of the woodwork.
It's Vonger.
From Jean Falong, Jean-V. I want to thank everyone involved in today's show. Thank our guest, Kathy Lieber. Thank you, Johnny Newcomb, for the intro. Thank you, BJ, for staying here late. Barry Greenstein for getting stuck in your game and coming up here, even though you were tilting. And Jean Falong, Thank you to all of you, and thanks to all of you on the Old Poker Road. Until next time, this is Joe Stapleton saying, always take the best of it.